like a variety of styles and musical theater and influencers through time, and just learn about this art form and get you up on stage and take risks. If you haven't sung in front of a group, let's give it a try. Because it's not about being on Broadway or even doing theater sometimes. It's just about building confidence, and kids need to hear more applause for the things they do. And when an audience stands up for them, a lot of these kids don't get that in their day to day. And a lot of these kids don't have theater programs where they live. We have kids that drive 2-3 hours from their little towns where they don't have, a high school theater program because it was cut or they just never had one, and they come to our program, which is great.
Absolutely.
And then our second week used to be called the Advanced Workshop, but now it's called Company, and it's a little more professional development. We have casting directors and directors talk to them, and we used to do like a reading of a full show, but it's really turned into performing a full show, which is crazy because it's 1 week, and we do a younger from 10 to 13-year-olds. They do a full show, and then the older, like 14 to 19, do a full show. And this summer we're doing Legally Blonde for one, which is hilarious. And I'm directing it. I usually don't direct the shows, but I was like, I'm going to do Legally Blonde with them. I know it inside and out. And then the younger kids are doing Disney's Descendants, which is fun because they get close. I bring them a little bit closer to it than they would have. Like the original director of Legally Blonde, Laura Bell, who was the original Elle, the writers, the composers, and the lyricists of the show, they're all going to talk with the kids via Zoom and how they wrote it, how they collaborate, how it came about. So that's kind of a cool experience that you don't really get everywhere.
Right. So are you going to be doing the camp in person?
We're not.
You're not.
This is when we did it virtual last year, and we're doing virtual again this year, which is not ideal, but there's a lot of kids from outside of Michigan that have joined our program that get to do it that otherwise wouldn't be able to. We did a year from October to April. We did a virtual program through the Wharton Center. We had kids from 11 different states that joined the program. So it's kind of a visibility thing for a great performing arts center like the Wharton. And it's an opportunity for these kids to connect to all these artists. We had 25 like really cool Broadway professional artists talk to these kids, work with them, coach them, which is unique. I'm not bringing 25 people out to Michigan every year, but there's a lot of benefits from all the virtual stuff we're doing. And then at the end of that, the kids submit self-tapes for an actual casting director. He was the casting director of The Greatest Showman, the movie, and Waitress on Broadway and a bunch of stuff. And he talked to them and got to know them. And then he's watching all their self-tapes and giving feedback, which is huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about one of your most favorite performances.
I would have to go with Kinky Boots for like Broadway shows experiences, just because the themes and what that show's about is so moving for the audience, and it catches them off guard. And I just love to see people's minds being changed a little bit. And it's a big love fest at the end. And that opening night of that show was just so tearful and beautiful. And because I don't know if you know Kiki Boots, but it's this.
I have seen it.
I mean, it's all these people who are different from each other. And it's these factory workers that are, simple, hardworking people. And then these drag queens that come in and are fabulous and artistic and crazy. And these people all have to come together and build something together. And I just think those themes are so important for today's society and for people to be reminded, like, oh, not everyone's like you. We can all get along actually with our different views and find common ground and do cool stuff together. That was the Oprah version of my Kinky Boots performance experience. But
I love that though. That was great for anyone who's listening that has no idea about the show. That's going to be great for them.
And you can watch it on Broadway Plus, or is it called? No, Broadway HD. It's like a platform that's like a subscription thing. they have the West End version is filmed. It's filmed really well. I hadn't seen it, and I saw it for the first time like a couple months ago. But it's great. It's a great kind of capture of the show if you can't get to the theater, which most of you probably can't right now.
Let's talk just for a minute about the MTV show Search for Elle Woods. Tell me a little bit about that. And I have to do full disclosure. My daughter said, you have to ask him about that. I've watched that so many times.
I mean, it was a really weird time to be a performer and to be me, because I wasn't a dance captain. I wasn't a creator. I just was in the cast of Legally Blonde, and they kind of, the head of MTV did all these videos of everybody. And I kind of made a joke of it. I went into Laura Bell's dressing room and put on her wig and was like, oh, we're doing the interview right now. And I kind of like was funny about it. And then I answered all the questions, and feedback from the producers. They're like, you're going to die. They want you to be a judge on the TV show. I was like, what? What does that mean? And it was just crazy because we would film from 8 a.m. till like 6 p.m, and I'd run to the theater and do the show, and we'd jump rope in the show, and I'd be doing flips and running around, and then I'd wake up the next morning and go to the set and talk to these girls. And it was a blast. It was so much fun. I had worked with 2 of the girls before in La Cage and in the tour that I was on, the Anna Get Your Gun tour, Selena and Emma Zax. But it was a blast. Never been on TV like that before. And there was a moment where they were like, you need to be Simon Cowell. You need to be mean. I was like, no. I will say this. I'm just going to be myself no matter what. I'm not going to pretend to be somebody on this show. No.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. But it was fun. And it was kind of interesting for the Broadway community because they saw something different in the way we kind of brand shows and get them out there. So many people knew what Legally Blonde was because of these shows that they'd seen on TV. Mm-hmm. So it was a good way to brand the show. The tour did very well of Legally Blonde, I think, because of these shows.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. But it was a blast. I'm very grateful that I got to be a part of it. And it kind of had a little resurgence in the pandemic. We were asked to, all the original girls and judges were asked to do this like YouTube reunion thing. And there's a lot of young people that weren't alive when we filmed it because we filmed it 13 years ago. And
oh, wow.
Newly kind of watching. Yeah, we filmed it in 2008.
Yeah, a lot of things have sort of had a resurgence because of COVID. More people just watching things and finding things. And that's been a kind of a big deal too. People that, I never sat really and even really watched I was not a binge watcher of Netflix or doing anything like that. I just don't have the time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, I guess I have a little bit of time. So what's good out there? And then people recommending things and people finding things. It's just been an interesting time.
Yeah. All the stuff you never thought you'd have time to do. You're finding time to do.
That is for sure. So we talked a little bit about navigating from sort of the creative side to business in doing the 2 businesses that you have now. But how was it navigating the artistic side to the business side? Like when you were so young, I mean, here you are, you're just in college, and then you go get your first audition, and then there you are a week later in your Broadway. And what was that like navigating the business side of being a performer?
Well, it wasn't really an issue until I didn't have a job. When I had a job, I would learn what happens. You get paid every Friday and this and this and this. A lot of that though was learning how to live in New York. I never lived in New York, and I had to find an apartment, and I had to figure out the subways and how do I live? How much should I pay on rent? Like all the stuff that I just was kind of thrown into very young. I didn't have any friends here. It's so funny because now these colleges do these showcases, and all these kids are so connected, and they know what headshots and resumes, and they go on YouTube and look at all the the latest and greatest stuff that's out there, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
so much better informed. And I just had no clue. My opening night on Broadway, I stood on a subway platform with flowers that my mom sent me, and that was it. And I just waited to go home, and I went home to my roommates and was like, well, I did a thing, going to bed. But now, no, it's when you don't have a job, it's the pounding the pavement, it's the going to auditions, it's selling yourself to these casting people, and like, what's my next show going to be? Because as performers, we're just kind of gypsies out there trying to just fit in and be whoever they want us to be. And that part was, by the time I was actually in the audition world, my best friend from college had moved out to New York, and we were kind of doing it together,
Mm-hmm.
running to auditions and going to lunch and meeting friends and stuff. So I kind of had a partner in crime to do all this with, which made it a lot easier.
Oh, for sure.
And that whole thing is the same thing I'm doing now with businesses that I'm the president of and that I run and stuff. I'm still kind of selling myself and what we do and how we do it and our practices and all that. Like, if I have a new meeting with a new person that doesn't know anything about me, I'm auditioning all over again.
Yep.
And you're either going to hire me or not, but I'm kind of going to be in performance mode all the time.
So true. It's funny. I interviewed a lady earlier and she just said, oh, I was never, in sales, and kind of spoke about it like it was not necessarily a good thing. And I teach sales. That's one of the things I do. And I said, we're all selling all the time. You're selling something all the time, an idea yourself. Get your kids to do what you want them to do. I mean, we are constantly selling. It is the way that you choose to look at it. I mean, and looking at it like I'm just performing, like, okay, I'm get my game face on. I'm going into this audition. That is absolutely what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to make what you're doing look like the best thing that's out there, because there's other people doing it. So you are selling yourself all the time.
Absolutely. So one of the things you made a mention of, and someone else on my show made a mention of this a couple weeks ago, and then we took off on another subject, and we actually didn't address it. And so you actually mentioned it again, and I do want to bring that up. And that is from, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, even 10 years ago, it is so different for young people today that are in pursuit of this career than it was for you. And just talk about some of those differences, and how do young kids navigate that today if this is what they want to pursue?
I mean, there's the goodness in all of it is that there's so much more information available. I always say to people going into this business of performing arts, learn everything you can, not just about what happens on stage, but learn about all the other jobs. What does the set designer do? The costume designer, the lighting, the house manager, the ushers, company managers that pay you. Learn about every angle of this business, and then network and meet everybody you possibly can in real life. You can't stay online forever. I think that's an easy thing for young people these days to do, is to have social media profiles and just kind of push out videos and content, and here's me singing, don't I sound great? But eventually you're going to be in front of people. You have to come to the city, you have to meet people if this is, the profession you want to pursue. But it is very different. And I at the same time, I say there's so much available. Sometimes there's too much available. So I think you have to be discerning, and you have to follow your gut. And if you're going to go into an artistic field, especially, you need to let your heart be the guide and let your passion kind of like dictate your path, and not get distracted by money and jobs and all the stuff that goes along with work and the business. You have to stay true to who you are. That was a long, vague answer, but
no, but that was great advice. I think that's good for young people to listen. And I think there's lots of parents of kids that want to pursue that listen to this as well. And some parents have absolutely no idea how to help their child with that or what advice to give them.